And by the way, I see all these herbs here too. So when you leave the building today, please plunder the stage. Please take as many herbs and greens with you as you would like. We have placed paper bags out there in the room, so you can grab a paper bag and just grab as many of these beauties as possible, because otherwise we really don't know what to do with them, right? So we want you to plunder the room. The same thing goes for everything out there that you see on the tables. Bring them with you. We don't like waste, okay? But some stuff that we really like is to listen to where's the world of investments in this sector going? And to help me sort this, I invited my dear old friend Håkan Leidstrand, who is a investment fantastico from a long background in the tech industry. Welcome, Håkan.
Thank you very much.
And tell me, who did you bring today in order to sort?
Yeah, I brought some money people, the best in the class, so to speak.
Okay, then I'll leave it up to you now to run this one, Håkan.
So now we're going to straight this out, see what we can make of it. We have these people are the ones that actually can help you make your startup or break it even, if you choose the wrong one. So be careful and be picky. First in line, we have Sanna. She works at I think it was one of your colleagues that coined it, the super fund of Sweden.
Yeah, that's what we call it.
Hopefully this refers to the returns of the fund.
Yep.
And I think you're known to many people in the ecosystem of tech in Sweden, but it will be very interesting to see what you do, especially in this field. The next one is Louise Hagen, who has a lot different character as an investor, coming from the Axel Johnson family and running their investment arm, DX. You are very purpose-driven towards this area, I can imagine, considering the legend of your company.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, of course, last but not least, no, actually we have two. Gustav, the next one, he's so long, so I can't see the other people behind him. He's like the meta investor of Sweden. Have done a lot of things, from starting companies, buying out his old colleagues, started to invest in stuff. I guess some you didn't know what you were doing at the beginning, but now you're quite experienced after many years of investing your family silver, so to speak. And then now, last but not least, Daniel, who is the black sheep in this group, founding and running the crowdfunding platform founded by me. So you're going to tell the other ones what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
I imagine that. But first, I think since these people are the ones that had a really strong binoculars, so they can see almost in the future, and have done a lot of things, I would like to start with Gustav. What was your last or best food tech investment so far, and why was that so great and is so great?
I hope my best investment is in the future, but now we're really excited about Oatly, like milk but made for humans, which is a thing they can't say, I can say it anymore. But they're really making it big now in the US. Still early stage, but I think this is going to grow into one of the global brands within plant-based and show that you can build leading companies out of Sweden in this segment. So I think it's going to be a breakaway company that other companies can follow on.
So that's going to be the first star on the Swedish food tech heaven.
I hope so, yeah. No, I think so, actually.
It's almost a star already.
Yeah.
And Sanna, you're more from the traditional VC industry, and since you're known for a lot of other investment, other areas, I mean, I'm super curious to understand what would you like to do in the food tech industry? What's so great? What do you see there?
How much time do I have? There's a lot of interesting things, and I think what we see now is a lot that comes from our US office. There's still a few years ahead there. It's almost on like molecular level with not only alternative sources to meat, but more like artificially grown meat is super interesting. Also, alternative ways of farming, urban farming, or using water rather than soil, and different kind of vertical farming is very, very interesting.
And I imagine, and speaking to a lot of founders, they are, of course, very so concerned with what kind of investor they should find for their startup. How does it work with a fund structure with a 7-10 year perspective, and you have an area like Foodtech where actually things can take a little longer time? Does it work with your investment horizon? And
well, I think for the type of investment I just mentioned, we actually don't know yet. We haven't made those. We've made it more in terms of grocery or the delivery of food. But I think it would be something that we would also look into at this stage in which we invest. We're not a company that would invest in pure research, for example. Other people do that a lot better, but more in terms when you have an application and you're ready to scale up, then we are a good partner.
okay. And Louise, coming from a different angle with a lot of legacy in the corporate structure, but quite a lot of interesting legacy as well. How do you see how do you see the Foodtech area?
Well, I find the Foodtech area extremely interesting, and there's so much opportunity looking forward. Representing Axel Johnson and DX, we invest in e-commerce and trade and products and services that enable trade. And, well, I mean, they're very exciting times ahead.
And what difference the normal tech investment and the Foodtech investment, Gustav? You have done the whole range.
Yeah, I once was described as we are investors without focus, so because we are so interested in so many things. But lately, I've started focusing on just food and health, so that's what I plan to do for the rest of my life. And of course, it's very different to invest in a company like Oatly that has like a physical product that needs to be produced and shipped. Than to scale a tech company like Spotify or something that can acquire customers online. But the interesting thing is that, like going to market, Oatly is on like a really fast track to grow big in the US, and with social media, with new distribution platforms like Amazon, you can actually grow food companies much faster now than you could do just 10 years ago. So I think, yeah, the pace is going up in traditional like food as well, and it's much easier to reach out to new consumers and build a business.
Yeah.
And it's also, we talked a bit before this, and I mean, if you simplify things, it's basically the same. It's about having a product that is 10 times better than what the competition has, or in Spotify cases was piracy. But with Oatly, for example. So what I hear when people talk about drink, it's not that, oh, I choose this because I don't want to drink milk. It's rather, this is awesome. It tastes great. So, the basics that it should be a really good product which people or companies love to use. It's the same. Without that, you don't have anything.
Mm. And Louise, how do you have actually a bag of tricks coming from Axel Johnson? There are a lot of things that you actually could make use of. What do you make use of? What makes sense to like integrate in your investment process and your investment management from the company perspective?
Well, like in all processes, when we evaluate a new investment opportunity, we definitely bring the expertise and the know-how from the group companies such as Axfood and Martin & Servera, and we have a long history, being very active within food. And I mean, a little bit as you say, I mean, so we invest in digital, and obviously we have our heritage in the physical world, but still, there's many of the processes are still the same. You buy food, you sell it, you have to position it well. So many of the processes are in a way the same, yet very different.
Mm. And Gustav, in this buffet of opportunities, which actually Foodtech is, what would be your picks going forward?
No, the reason I'm so interested in this area is that it's so hard to make good food choices as a consumer because our brains are not wired to like pick the best food that is good for us long term. We pick stuff with sugar, we love it. We don't pick kale, and I really crave kale now. I really want to eat it, but you should. So I think we can help consumers to make better food choices with the data. So like big data, open data is a really interesting area, because then you can create a transparency and show that like a Nix Kex bar is 10 times better for your health than a Cloetta Kexchoklad. And then you can like nudge consumers in the right behavior. But you can also create really, really good processed food. Like processed food has a bad reputation today because it's junk food mostly, like it contains a lot of junk. But you can actually create processed food that is much better for your health than like natural foods. And if you look at technologies like CRISPR and like GMO, that is now, people are very scared about it, but I think it's very, very powerful technology. And in the future, I think we can actually, we can close the gap between healthy and tasty and produce food that is like both tasty and you love it and it's really good for your health.
Do you need
That's
a lot of
big
tech
opportunity.
do you need a lot of tech for doing that, or is it?
Yeah, but the fun thing is like tech can be all like in all levels. And like this tech, I mean, CRISPR is really, really high tech, but it's not tech like software tech. But then once you find those products that are 10 times better, you need to find the consumers, your fan base, and then you can use like social media, influencers, and you can go sell through Amazon instead of traditional retail. And you probably still need to sell to retail. So like it's a complicated landscape, and you need tech in all those.
And Daniel, does it all make sense? You have strong, powerful investor coming into your company and maybe telling you what to do. Does it all
Yes
make
and no.
sense?
The problem is that you have so many thousands and tens of thousands of companies wanting and needing funding, and obviously the VCs and angels are not enough, right? And you still want to see all these new inventions and this new energy to see the day of light, because otherwise tens of thousands of amazing startups will probably just die. So we see that crowdfunding is a really good complement to try out certain things on the customers and especially create a need. I think definitely that creating a need is the first thing you want to do before you go all in, you build a huge company. We've seen previously big companies being built and nobody wants the product, while if you build it the opposite way, that a lot of people want the product first and then eventually you deliver the product, it becomes a success. You can also create trends without knowing it. We were lucky enough that we helped Flipping Burgers when they came to their first idea, and we know the banks didn't want to fund them, governmental institutions didn't want to fund them, no angels we didn't want to fund them, because nobody thought that Sweden was ready for a burger trend, and it was. Like now you see burgers everywhere because 156 people backed that idea, and that became eventually a restaurant, which was extremely successful. And I think a lot of life is about trial and error, and you can try and error and fail with smaller amounts of money and then grow that company and then eventually go to the big muscles and say, okay, now I'm ready to do scale up or
Is
growth.
that the best value that this financing platform brings to the table?
No, I would say the opposite. The thing is that a lot of people, when they build companies or food companies, they tend to forget one thing. Is like there's a lot of, I want to build this because I want to see this, but you forget the millions who actually crave this, the users, right? So if you look at the users first and then you try to involve them in the process of funding, of building, of testing, of being ambassadors, you get a bigger kick in your company than just the funding. We see a lot of people who come to us for fundraising needs and then leave and they say, look, the fundraising and the actual cash I received, maybe it's on the 4th level. The exposure, the feedback, the ambassadorship was so much more valuable than the cash at hand, even though the cash could be tens of millions.
And Sanna, I mean, you want to really, you're kind of a say, push investor. You want to push companies going very far, great goals, not create a mom and pop business. So I guess you need a lot of pressure in the trend and changes in the markets to find your best investment cases.
Yeah, we'll definitely look at the overall potential. So either that there is already a huge market, or that it's somehow creating that.
Where do you see the highest pressure of change and opportunity in the food tech area now?
It's a lot of opportunity in resource productivity of different kinds, where you can either avoid transport or get the same yield with less input. Agriculture overall is a huge market. But also, as I mentioned before, which might be more of a moonshot project, but also in the artificial meat, I'm convinced we will see amazing companies, although it might take some time.
And Louise, what is your purpose from Axel Johnson to do investment in small companies and small startup? What's behind that activity?
Well, I'd say it's very strategic to find new business models, new opportunity, new talent, and invest like in the food companies of the future.
And Gustav, I mean, I know you as a purpose-driven person. Why do you do this, actually?
And that's a good
It
question.
wasn't your father that told you to.
Yeah, my job is to buy problems. I pay a lot of money and I get a lot of problems. But it's really fun, and it's really fun to work with entrepreneurs. Like Guldspången West is also our window into the future. So if you look through that window, you see things that's going to happen 10 years from now, 5 years, 10 years from now. And that's really rewarding. So it's a lifestyle. It's fun.
Lifestyle investor.
No, really. And the thing is, we're a family. We invest our own money. But we said we want to have the same returns as Creandum, which is one of our idols. We think it's a really great fund, and we want to have the same standards when we invest. So we don't do it like it's for real, and we want to make a lot of money, but we also want to create a big impact, positive impact on the world. So we are purpose-driven, for profit with passion. Which is kind of an interesting mix. And many entrepreneurs like that because they don't want investors that do it for fun and don't really care about the money. We care a lot about the returns.
What's your purpose, Anna, except for returning
it's all about
the pension funds?
No, but you say that makes it really powerful. I think it's not a trade-off. If you want something to be very, very valuable, it needs to be sustainable for a long period of time. And I think it's hard to do that if it's not, sustainable in all ways. The times where you could say, yeah, we know it's really bad for the environment, but we don't really care. They're sort of over. You can't really do that anymore.
Really, sustainability is good business, though.
Yeah, and we also have a discussion because from time to time these sort of non-obvious, if it's weapon or porn or something, it's quite easy. It's like we're not going to do this. But those who are sort of semi-borderline, but then we have the life's too short to spend time on that. If it's not, helpful or making, this sounds so pretentious, but if it's not making the world a better place, in some way, there's so many things other things we can do.
And if you could make a pick from what you see in these 2 days, and don't have to ask your investment committee, which company would you pick to invest in here?
Yeah, I haven't been here for 2 days, so yeah, it's very hard. You have to ask someone else about that.
Louise?
I haven't been here for 2 days either, but we recently made an investment in MatSmart, which I think, is right in the intersection between commercial or financially driven, but also feels a much greater purpose. So for those of you who don't know, MatSmart sells surplus food that otherwise would have been thrown away. And I think that makes, in that way they can take a discount position online, which is very much an untapped position in Sweden today, and where there's a huge demand. And at the same time, food doesn't have to be thrown away.
Great example. And Gustav, a new pick?
I have
Not one of your old ones now, a new one.
I had to pause on that question, yeah.
The old pause, and Daniel, you can pick 3.
Three. Well,
It's your platform.
I love a lot of strange new food coming. I just tried the Somali pierogi out there. I think the trends are that we're going to try new cultures. We are traveling far more than before, and the world becomes smaller. So you want to eat the foods that you visit. But I think what we're going towards, if you look at tech, is that you're going to look at food distribution to your household based on what you actually need. Analyzes blood, saliva, or feces, or whatever, and then you get the bag that you deserve to eat based on whatever you want to do in your life. And I think smart tools which take in consideration delivery methods and new types of food based also on you as an individual, I think that's the future, because right now a lot of the stuff is catered to the tens of thousands of people at the same time, while everybody's extremely individualistic. So I think those people who will invent that crossover between high tech, big data, paired with the user analysis, and then deliver whatever is needed for you, I think those will create a gold mine.
I will invest in that company. If
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
someone succeeds in
Great
that base.
love.
I think actually, you want to tell me about the company who has a chip implant in your tooth which analyzes saliva, right? And should tell you in theory what you should eat. So it is coming. I think what we are in the middle of is a kind of a paradigm shift where technology is happening, investments are happening, users are waking up by the millions, demanding different stuff. Big companies who have huge food delivery organizations, they need to cater to the needs in a different way. Maybe take a bit of a losses. You can't just sell what's cheapest. And then I think that need eventually creates invention. It creates a ground for new stuff happening, and I think that's what we see. We see a lot of cool energy coming out, and people just trying to experiment.
Great. I think we've proven that we have purpose-driven people. It's not all about the money. It's doing good business and good for society as well. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Please give a hand to the great panel.